Here's how I would use American credit to scale my business without moving to any tax haven country. See, when I was younger, I would always be watching these YouTube videos on how to achieve 0% taxes. Because keep in mind, I was living in Canada, a place that charges you up to 50% in taxes. Watching half of my business income disappear before I even have the chance to touch it. And at the age of 19, I thought the solution was simple. Move to a tax haven country. So I flew myself to Dubai and lived there for few years and realized that there's something about taxes that no one talks about. Moving to a tax haven country when you're making 5 or 6 figures isn't the smartest move. That's why in this video, I'm going to share my personal experience on why non-US business owners should focus on accessing the American credit system before they even consider moving to different countries to reduce their taxes. Why? Well, because when you're making 5 to 6 figures and worrying about taxes, you're focused on the wrong things. You're focused on step number 5 or 6 when you should be in fact focused on step number 1 or 2. It's like trying to optimize the pennies instead of focusing on the dollars. But before we get in, as a quick disclaimer, this video is for educational purposes only. We have no income guarantees over here. I would always advise you to seek qualified professionals for your specific situation, especially when it comes to taxes, or you can just get in contact with my team. Now let's get straight into it. So the reason why I have these beliefs is based on real life experience. At the age of 19, I became a full-time resident of the UAE. I was living in Dubai and I lived there for a few years until I realized a very important lesson that I should have probably learned before I even moved to Dubai. At a very young age, I was super focused on watching YouTube videos about tax minimization, how I can achieve 0% tax, the different solutions such as going to Cyprus or going to Paraguay or going to Dubai. In my opinion, I have nothing against tax haven countries. I have nothing against tax minimization. My main issue is, as a business owner, you should be focusing your priority on the big moves, on the moves that will make you the most amount of money. And so optimizing your taxes when you're only making 5 or 6 figures doesn't really make that much sense, and you'd rather try to focus on accessing financial tools that will make you more money. That's why I believe that a lot of non-US business owners should be making these moves before they move to tax haven countries. Now, keep in mind, moving to a new country is a tax in itself. You have to keep in mind that just by achieving 0% tax, it doesn't mean that you have no expenses. When I moved to Dubai, I had to put a lot of money down. I had to literally go on an airplane that cost me $1,000 at that time before I learned about travel hacking, and I had to pay for my business incorporation. I had to pay for all of these minute details like my rent and the cost of living and whatnot. Because I wanted to live around entrepreneurs, I was paying the price to be inside of downtown or inside of Business Bay. In those regions, it typically will cost you more money to do anything. And so I realized that although tax haven countries might actually save you some money on the tax side. You'll pay 0% tax in some cases. The problem that I have is when it comes to priorities for business owners. When you want to scale your business, you don't want to think about defensive moves. And my problem here is about the mindset. I was so obsessive over tax minimization and how the government's going to come and try to attack me when I'm not even making a significant amount of cash flow. And so really the big switch that I had to make when I was in Dubai was focusing on offensive moves instead of thinking about defensive moves. I was thinking very defensively at a young age. Maybe that's how I was programmed or whatnot, because I was living in Canada. Everyone talked about taxes. Everyone talked about compliance. Before I even made a single dollar, a lot of the people around me would tell me, hey, well, JP, you got to be incorporated. You got to set up your business like this. You got to do these little moves and whatnot. And I started to just get scared to then learn about Dubai taxes. They achieve 0% taxes. Maybe I should do that. My focus as a business owner was put in the wrong places. I should have focused instead on the financial tools that will make me more money, where I have significant income to the level that then tax minimization becomes something that you should focus on. So what do I mean about financial tools that make you more money? Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of intangibles that a lot of people don't realize are actual blessings if you are in certain countries. And so in America, why is it that if you live in America, it's much easier to make money, it's much easier to access credit so that you can scale your business? It's just generally much easier to do capitalism. Why is that the case? Well, it's because they've got access to better payment processors, better access to credit, better access to business funding. Why is it that someone in Pakistan or India can't do the same as someone in the USA? Why do we have 19-year-old young business owners in the USA making 6 figures a month and whatnot online when it would be super rare to see that anywhere else? Well, it's the fact that they've got access to the premium financial tools that you'll find in the world. And of course, I run a business that helps non-US citizens access American credit. And so I might be personally a bit biased. But the reason why I keep emphasizing on this point is because I lived it. I moved to Dubai trying to minimize my taxes while making 5 figures, 6 figures in that region. And the problem that I soon enough encountered was the fact that there was pretty much not even a credit system in Dubai. I wasn't able to access funding for my business, and I was having a hard time with payment processing. A lot of people in Dubai might know that the payment processing in certain tax haven countries is a bit of an issue. If you're trying to take payments from people in the US, you take it through a payment processor through Dubai or the UAE, then you might have some issues, right? And so I was actually getting declines from Europe and in the USA because I was using a UAE based company to process my payments. And so I have nothing against tax haven countries. Again, I just have to say I've got a lot of friends in the UAE. I've got a lot of friends in tax haven countries, and they love their countries, right? And so I'm not here to like offend them and whatnot. But my main thing over here is that if you had the chance to prioritize what you should focus on in the perspective of your own business, your main focus should be about how can I make more money right now, and then think about those defensive moves that will allow you to save money from the government and whatnot. So here's the actual sequence that I would follow if I was starting all over from scratch. The first thing I would do if I was a non-US citizen is consider incorporating in the USA. And you don't have to travel, you don't have to do anything. This start of the process could be done absolutely remotely. What I would do is get my hands on an LLC so I can start taking in payments, so I can start receiving money and potentially open up a business bank account with Mercury or Slash or RelayFi and accept payments through that LLC, through a US based corporation. And eventually, as I start making more and more income, I'm receiving payments through that specific processor. And again, I'm not talking about taxes here. There's some things that you'll need to comply with. And the reason why you want to do this with a US based company and not like a Spanish company or a company where you're based in is typically because it's just much easier, and the financial tools you're getting your hands on are typically better on a capitalistic perspective. You're able to take money from anywhere in the world. You're able to receive payments. You have lower fees and whatnot, and access to credit is absolutely available, right? Although I'm a Canadian, I've got Canadian credit cards. I've also got US credit cards. And the difference between my Amex Platinum USA and my Amex Platinum Canada is absolutely different. On this side, the points are not really gaining me anything. The points are actually worth less than US based points. And on the other end, my American points are gaining me a lot more back because of the ad spend that I'm putting in. So I'm using my American credit card. So just going back to the actual sequence that I would follow. I would do everything remotely, right? I would set up my LLC. I would get my payment processor. I would get a address. I would also get my ITI in while I'm waiting to scale my income. And eventually, once I'm reaching around, let's say $10,000 a month in revenue, then I would consider opening up personal bank accounts and building up my credit in the United States. And so the reason why this sequencing is important is because I'm still not focused on taxes. Wherever I am, I'm still tax compliant. And the great thing is that you're not paying US taxes with this US LLC as long as you comply. Again, there's other videos on this channel talk about taxes, but you're not going to be paying US taxes typically with that US LLC because it's a pass-through entity, but you need to be compliant to the place that you're living in, right? And then as my income continues to grow, then I would consider a trip to the United States so that I can start opening up and aggressively building my credit, opening up some personal bank accounts with the big 5 banks. This is what we personally help people do. We help them access the American credit system, access funding, access better addresses so that they can actually save money for their business and realistically get access to the best redemption credit cards, the best funding, 0% interest offers so that they can scale their business further. And then at that point, that's when I would say, okay, well, now you can think, okay, Dubai or Cyprus or Paraguay and whatnot, right? But you're only going to do that once you're making significant amounts of money. Like, I'm telling you, I was 19, I became a full-time resident of Dubai. But I'm personally Canadian. Making that move at the age of 19 was a very ballsy move. And it's also because of a few other details, because I worked with Andrew Tate and whatnot, and he was in Dubai and whatnot, and ideally I would want to be close by him and whatnot. But like, the main thing here is like, before you decide to move your whole life and do this tax minimization deal, think about the aggressive moves that you can do to scale your income before you think about that minimization, right? Although I would love to pay 0% taxes, sometimes it's better to pay taxes and maybe have a higher tax bill for the first 1 or 2 years while you're trying to scale your business and taking advantage of the tax code in your own country to then eventually get access to a 0% tax rate. But while you're getting to that level, you're focusing on getting access to financial tools that will help you scale your business, right? In my opinion, this is the way to go. Again, like, you can do your own thing when it comes to your business journey. But after learning this lesson the hard way, like literally moving my life down there and then coming back to then realize, wait, I should access American financial products. I now live between Miami and Canada, and my tax bill is minimized, and I'm using my US LLC to pay 0% taxes, but I still have to comply to Canadian tax laws and whatnot. I don't want this video to get too technical, but the mindset is focus on making before you get legal, right? And as I said, I used to do sales with Andrew Tate, and this is a common thing that I see with a lot of young people or business owners in general. They always think about taxes and laws and whatnot before they even have a dollar made. You should not be thinking on the legalities of things. Again, just do things that are not illegal, right? Like, don't sell drugs and whatnot. I'm not telling you to do any of that stuff, right? But when it comes to operating a business, focus your attention on how to scale, how to bring more value to this world, how to do those aggressive things that will allow you to scale the income before those defensive moves. So if I was to just sum up this video, that's the mindset you should have. The aggressive mindset versus the defensive mindset. And especially in the very early days, you should not be having that defensive mindset. You should not be scared of taking in payments from clients. As long as you've got that US LLC, that US payment processor, you probably won't have any problems. So look, I'm not telling you to avoid tax optimization forever. I'm telling you to prioritize this correctly. Revenue first, capital first, and growth first. Then you can think about optimizing taxes when it actually moves the needle. Because 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs who are winning in this global market aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They just know how to prioritize their time and have access to a superior financial system. It's as simple as that. Now, if you want to learn how you can set this up for yourself personally, I made another video breaking down why every non-US entrepreneur needs a US LLC to unlock financial tools and scale their business. So click right here to watch this video. It actually goes through the legalities around taxes and how this is achievable for you as a non-US citizen or non-US resident. So I'll see you in the next video. Give it a like, subscribe. I love you guys. Bye.